Anything that either of you feel, and again, maybe we'll start with you this time, Steel, then go to Duhz. Any opportunities that you see within the game, maybe things you would love for them to kind of double down on and invest a little bit more in, maybe scale back, maybe switch up. Any features, ideas that you just think would be great for the game, or again, if it's any changes you'd like to see.
Yeah, so, well, I recently made 3 suggestions, right? And I am also thinking about adding a new one. I just haven't had time. One of them is I would like them to reduce the period at the end of the season, right? Because the season ends within, I believe, 60 days, the Augur Stone. And the last 20 days or the last 30 days are entirely just Farmville. Like, as the game stands, there's literally nothing to do. I guess adding more events and Arc of Osiris, the arena. I guess it could fix it to an extent, but the underlying issue, I don't think it's gone, even if you had more events. I'm not really sure how you would fix that either, because I'm pretty sure that's entirely because of matchmaking. Maybe it fixes itself as there are more servers down the line. I don't know. We'll have to see. But if I had the option, I would prefer if they reduce the time, the resting period at the end of the season. The other suggestion would be giving us more clarity regarding the migration system, and potentially even adding some sort of king system, so that you actually get to pick who joins the server and who doesn't. Simply because we literally have 0 information on how migration works, except, yeah, you guys can migrate at the end of the season and you pay 5k gems, that's it. That's literally all the information we have about it. We have 0 clue how it works.
Yeah.
So, I would like for some more information, because it's, for any actual competitive server, any competitive alliance, migration is and will always be the backbone of any alliance. Because if you're in this for the long term, you will need to migrate people in, and you will need to do recruiting from outside your server, and migration is the only way you can do that. So I think clarity is pretty much mandatory for this kind of game and for all the competitive alliances. The third suggestion was completely getting, or at least changing, the alliance resets on new seasons. Because from someone that has went through 4 merges or so, or something like that so far, it gets really troublesome and really annoying even to having to deal with the alliance resets every single season. Because players, at least from my experience, they want to be with their friends,
Yep.
and they want to be with their community. And being forced to split the whole community into 4 or 5 alliances, to me, that's completely toxic, and that's the opposite of what they should be doing, which is promoting a community, promoting a fun time, and to keep players engaged into the game. Because if there's... So, the season system, right, it's good because it brings people back into the game, expecting new content, right? That's something that happens to every game that has seasons, battle passes, stuff like that. However, it also loses because I see a lot of people quitting because they can't get into the main alliances with their friends.
Yep.
And it can take over a month to get people into the main alliance, because it just takes time, right? It just takes time for the behemoths to unlock, for the technology to progress. So, from both an alliance leadership perspective, which is a lot of work and a lot of dedication and a huge time sink to prepare for everything in each new season, as well as from your average player point of view, like, I think the alliance reset either has to change or just remove it completely. As for the last suggestion that I would do, and I would honestly think that if these 4 suggestions were implemented or changed in a way, I generally believe the game would be in a very, very near perfect state, without adding more content, right? Because we do need more content as well. The game is very bare bones still compared to Rise of Kingdoms. But again, that's just something that comes with the time frame. Over time, they will add more events for sure. So the last suggestion would be reverting or increasing the elixir healing. I still think 6 hours is too it's too short. It just is. Even with the villages on the S1 Plus season, uh, you can maybe raise it to 7, maybe 8 hours, but it's still way too short. People gotta sleep, people gotta work, especially for the bigger spenders, right? People that usually spend a lot on these games are people that are usually busy IRL, so they spend to compensate the time that they need to be online, right? And it's a huge difference for those players specifically, because they just don't have the time to be logging in every few hours into the game. As well as, it's not only the time commitment, but it just feels like a chore. Going from logging in and all your troops being healed, and having to actually log in every few hours and actually going over to the hospital and clicking heal, like it just feels like an extra chore that you don't really want to do compared to what it was before. I get the idea of the elixir system. I don't completely dislike it, because it could promote even more fighting, right? If the system was perfect, because then you have like extra healing for the first day. So it could promote more fighting, but the way it stands, I think it does the opposite in the long run, where there will be way less fighting, way less fighting, and it's also a chore, which is annoying for everyone involved. And I just think that the old healing system was better, but I can see the elixir system working if they tweak it some more.
Okay. Okay, love it. No, man, thank you so much. All right, Duhz, let's wrap it up with your beautiful barber-like mustachio that we have a picture of you for. Your thoughts.
So look, man, the beard gang.
Yeah.
So yeah, look, Chad pretty much covered everything. He executed it perfectly. I'm going to take a different approach, but I do want to highlight a little bit on the elixir system. I love the fact that you get to individually select the unit type. Some people would argue that kind of creates a different level of imbalance, especially for whales. But I think it's brilliant to be able to select the specific troop type because of strategies, right? If we're low on, let's say we're low on infantry, but we need flag builders. Well, look, you can go and heal 50k, you know what I mean, or 100k, and you still have the capacity, or rather capability, of healing archers if you need to, or cabs if you need to rally. Cabs are meta for rallies. So you know that's kind of my whole idea on it, and I totally agree with Chad as far as the cap currently as it stands. Before, you could work your, as I said earlier in the interview, you could work your 8 to 10 hour workday. You could come in, you could click your hospitals and be good to go, ready to jump back in the fight. Now, if you log in at the same place where you left off. And I think that is super counterproductive to what the game should be, or what they had envisioned as far as fighting all the time, right? So I totally agree there. I also think that the village system is a little silly right now. So when it comes to villages, you have an occupancy cap, right? And I just don't understand the method behind that, because if I'm offline for 6 to 8 hours due to sleep or work, and if you're in an international server, you're either NA or EU or Asian, and everyone or anyone else, player base is online and active, but you're not, depending on your region, you could miss out on that cap. And yes, I think it caps at like 70 or 80, but there's usually more than 70 or 80 people in an alliance. So I think they should remove any kind of occupancy, right? And kind of allow the alliance itself to reap those benefits, because they kind of nerfed the village system in general. I don't even think you generate resources from it or buffs. So there would really be no harm in that, right? To allow the players to heal, if you're going to cap us in all these angles. Let's talk about elite raids. So I hate the fact that you get a participation frame. I would rather the gems, rewards, speed ups, things like that, resources, be the incentive for participating, but the frame is alliance based. That way, it's a leadership nightmare to have to tell people, sorry, you kicked ass. You were number 41. But unfortunately, you weren't top 40, and we have to give the frames to the top 40 players, even though you did the best that you could. I think it's silly. It's completely counterintuitive to what they're trying to, promote as this being a very well-balanced game. I think that works against leadership. It really gives us a nightmare as far as being able to attune who gets to get the frames. What else? So I think I would love to see the devs shift from this alliance-based mentality. I think, realistically speaking, people love community. No matter what it is we do, where we go, in any environment from the beginning of time, community is something that we naturally and organically try to develop and establish. And if you want to continue this game in a healthy, I would believe, path, allow players to, allow things to be more or less server-based. Whether that means allowing us to have some sort of control on who gets to come into our server or not, as Chad says, or also get to kind of retain to some degree our alliance shell, maybe just nerf the tech, nuke the tech a little bit, let us still have a 80 to 100 member cap. That way we can have some sense of normalcy and somebody has a place to call home. But for the most part, I think that's pretty much it for me. That's
okay.
What I would like to see change.
Okay, awesome. No, man, I think great points on either side. Something I was throwing around in one of my recent videos is probably something I'll chime in on some of the topics Chad made, which I still have to chime in on a few. I think one of the things they could try doing is just leaving the member capacity, not necessarily as is, but like lower the max end of the cap, but still allow everyone who's in the alliance to stay there. Right? So like if you have 150 people before the first season ends, but the cap's still going to go down to 40, then at least allow for it to be 150 over 40, right? Even if you have to work the cap back up, sure, it may seem tedious, but at least you do not have to sacrifice those players where you're going to have to deal with all of that logistical nightmare. And I'm not necessarily saying that's the end-all be-all solution, but I do think that could be a good stepping stone fix in the right direction, where you don't have to worry as much about that. I think
or just completely nerf like tech in general. Just leave the member cap. Leave it alone.
No, exactly. Yeah, like if you still want to do the reset for tech, because I kind of get that where it still allows for you to continue doing tech donations, especially if you've already maxed your tech out, so you at least still get some alliance credits from it. Like I can understand. Like I can wrap my head around that. Unless they're going to implement some other type of system where you can accumulate specifically alliance credits outside of obviously helps, but just in another way that you can do it, or where you're getting more, then, again, you can sell me on that unless, again, there's another great idea. But if the main, I think the biggest thing on the resets is and has to be the member capacity resets. That seems to be the most impactful overall.
The thing is, like, there's a lot of different technologies that you can research, and I totally agree with them resetting 100%. I think it makes it more fun because it gives the players an objective to go forward, right? Because it forces people to be online, it forces activity, and I think giving people a new objective every new season, I think it's cool. It's nothing new, right? It's something they did before, but it's still something that they will have to do in each new season. The thing is, there's only 3 technologies out of maybe 40 different ones in the alliance technology that give player slots, which are the divine covenants. So it could be as simple as simply locking those 3 technologies to their maximum every season, and you would essentially begin with, like, I don't know how many it is, but I think it's like 100 slots or 100 something.
Yeah.
When the 3 divine covenants are maxed.
Yeah.
So those 3 would be locked, and then you could just have to research everything else. And I think that would be a perfectly fine balance.
Yeah. No. I can see that. The interesting part is that because they lower the amount of behemoths as well. And
which also affects the member count.
Exactly. So I'm actually not mad at that as I'm brainstorming in my head right now on what you just said. Maybe what they could even do is increase the number of player slots, like the cap limit increase on those 3 technologies, and then lock them, as you said. Right, so maybe they increase it by double the amount, and now you can be at 150, for example. Right, something that compensates for the member cap loss that you're missing out on because of the lowered amount of behemoths. Right, something I actually kind of like that type of hybrid mixture. I want to have to think about that more, but I kind of like that direction. That's going to do it for us. As always, until next time, and I guess us temporarily, we'll catch you later.